The meaning of religion. Conversations with Sri Ramana Maharishi. As for God's help in my effort, is not that to be acquired by worship, etc.? Will not that be helpful? Bhagwan said, Ishvara's grace and worship for it, etc., are intermediate steps, adopted and necessary to be adopted as long as the goal is not reached. When it is reached, God is the Self. A visitor asked Sri Bhagwan for prasad, gift offering, from his lunch, and Maharishi said, Eat without thinking of the ego. Then what you eat becomes Bhagwan's prasad. If I give you one morsel from my plate, each one will ask for a morsel. What will be left for me if I distribute the whole plate to others? So you see, that is not devotion. There is no significance in eating a morsel from my plate. Be a true devotee. Then devotee asked, Should I continue idol worship? Maharishi said, So long as you think you are the body, there is no harm. It may lead to concentration of mind, get one pointed. Then devotee asked, Is there a separate being Ishvara who is the rewarder of virtue and punisher of sins? Is there a God? Maharishi said, Yes. Then devotee asked, Does Ishvara have an end? Does Ishvara get dissolved in pralaya, period of repose or dissolution? Maharishi said, Pralaya is the soul held by Maya. If you can, with all your defects and limitations, rise by jnana into the realization of self, and above all, Pralaya and samsara, for is it not reasonable to expect that Ishvara, who is infinitely more intelligent than you, is above and beyond pralaya? Enlighten yourself by realizing yourself. Then devotee asked, Should I practice sandhya, morning and evening religious rites? Maharishi said, If you think it necessary, by all means practice it. Everything in the Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures is said to suit the particular temperaments of the hearers. Then devotee asked, Young men who are taught scriptures in their early age are found to detest the same later in life. Maharishi said the revulsion of feeling is not due to age but due to misunderstanding. If rightly guided, they will appreciate the scriptures all the more in their mature age. All creeds are but preliminaries for the masses leading up to the real truth of the self. The religions are not necessarily the highest expression of the highest wisdom of their founders, who had to consider the times in which they lived and the mental capacities of the people. The highest wisdom is too subtle for most minds, and so a whole scheme of worlds, gods, bodies, evolution, etc., had to be given out because people seem to find it easier to believe all these things rather than believe the simple truth of the one reality, self. Thus, reincarnation, astral planes, survival after death, etc., are true, but only from a lower standpoint. It is all a matter of standpoint. From the highest, that of the real self, all else disappears as illusory and only the reality remains. It is true that subtle astral bodies exist because, in order to function in the dream world, a body is necessary for that world, but it too is real only on its own plane, whereas the one self is always real, always and eternally existent, whether we are aware of it or not. Hence, it is better to seek that, because the other self bodies are only conditionally real. An ordinary Christian is only satisfied when told God is in some far off heaven, not to be reached by us unaided, that Christ alone has known him and he alone can save us. Hence, when told the simple truth that the kingdom of heaven is within you, he is not satisfied and will read far fetched meanings in the statement. Mature minds alone can grasp the simple truth in all its nakedness. Devotees are what of idols? Maharishi said, they have a deep significance. Their worship is a method for concentration of mind. The mind is wont to move externally. It must be checked and turned within. Its habit is to dwell on names and forms. For all external objects possess names and forms. Such names and forms are made symbolic of mental conceptions in order to divert within itself the mind from external objects and make it dwell within itself. The idols, mantras, sacred syllables, rites, etc., all are meant to give food to mind in its inward course so that it may become capable of being concentrated, after which alone the supreme state can be reached. Ishvara has individuality in mind and body, which are perishable, but at the same time, he has also the transcendental consciousness and liberation inwardly. Ishvara, a personal God or supreme creator of the universe, does exist. This is true only from the relative standpoint for those who have not realized ultimate truth and who believe in reality of individual souls. From the absolute standpoint, the sage cannot accept any other existence other than the impersonal self, one and formless. Ishvara has the physical body, a form and name, but it is not so gross as this material body. It can be seen in visions in the form created by the devotee. The form and name of God are many and various, changing with the religions. His essence is same as ours, the real self being only one and without form. Hence, the forms he assumes are only creations or appearances. Ishvara is immanent in every person and every material object throughout the universe. The totality of all things and beings constitutes God. There is a power out of which a small fraction has become all this universe, and the remainder is in reserve. Both this reserve power plus the manifested power as material world together constitute Ishvara. To worship this creator, man must understand God's nature and man's relation to it. All moral conduct, all rational thought is the right worship of this God. Even the Western skeptic who does his limited best to understand God is performing right worship. The real source is not this relative God, but it can be reached through this type of worship. Hari Om Tat Sat.